Hello everyone, welcome to Abhishek Educational Services. This is me Abhishek Sharma and this is the lecture number 2 of our Prelims 2020 booster course. Now in this course, as you already know, we will be recalling the basics. We will be doing section wise, topic wise current affairs and input from February 2019 to August 2020, and we will be also discussing the 20 years UPSC multiple choice questions for that particular chapter, which we will be covering in this video lecture as well. So today's video is on Indian economy monetary system. The presentation that I'm using in this video, the link for downloading that presentation will be available in the description of this video, so you can get it from there. Okay. Now, as you already know, this Prelims 2020 booster course is a part of my personal mentoring program, and the economy and polity sections will be available to every one of you on YouTube free of cost, so you can enjoy that. Okay. And I'm sure this will help you a lot because economy and polity, they are the two sections which are very scoring in prelims, and a lot of current affairs comes there. So definitely this will help you boost your prelims preparation as well. Okay, so today's lecture is on your monetary system. Okay, any kind of doubts you have, you want to join in this program, you can email me at this email ID. So let's start with the indexation and recalling of Indian economy chapter 4 monetary system. Now, as you already know, the system that I'm adopting is that as far as the basic sections are concerned, I am already sure that most of you have done those sections. In any case, I'm providing the notes for those sections also within this presentation. So we'll be just quickly going through what all are the basics within this topics of monetary system. We will be focusing most of our discussion on the current affair topics, what kind of questions can come out of those current affairs, and what MCQs have been asked in these last 20 years of UPSC prelims papers from this particular chapter of monetary system. Now, today's lecture is specifically focused on monetary system as a single chapter because this is a very important topic in your UPSC prelims examination. No UPSC paper till date has happened without a question from monetary system, and especially the RBI related current affairs, which are a mammoth in themselves, as we'll be discussing in today's presentation. I would want that you download this presentation from the link that is given in description before watching the video, so that it is helpful for you. You can keep a track, and whatever add-on information I give to you, you can also note down in that presentation itself. So let's begin. So first off, within the monetary system, what all topics we have to be covering? First is you need to have a basic knowledge of what is money. So a unit of exchange, store of value, these kind of things. Then types of money. Then what is the exchange rate, effective exchange rate, purchasing power parity exchange rate, floating exchange rate. So various kind of exchange rates you should be aware of. We have seen in yesterday's lecture, lecture number 1, that there are two questions asked just on exchange rate in the prelims 2019 paper. Okay, so you should know the basic topics here. Then the measures of money supply, the M0, M1, M2, M3, M4, what are they? What is reserve money? What is narrow money? What is broad money? You should know this. Then what is inflation? What are the monetary reasons or non-monetary reasons for the inflation and other reasons? Okay, you should know the effects of inflation, the measurement of inflation, various kinds of phenomena involved therein, such as base effect, such as GDP deflator, consumer price index, the price index for measurement of inflation. Okay, then headline versus core inflation, what is this? Then WPI, PPI, IIP, and SPI, the various kind of indices that we study for Indian economy. Also, you should know the recommendations of Urjit Patel Committee 2014 for this particular chapter. Now, as far as this chapter is concerned, these are the basic informations that I am including for a quick revision so that you don't have to look for it here and there. Okay, so as far as the whole basics are concerned, this is monetary economics. It's a branch of economics that provides a framework for analyzing money and its function as a medium of exchange, store of value, unit of account. So basic information is all there. You can look through it, you can study it. Okay, the questions on this basic information we will be discussing at the end of this lecture. Okay, now money is anything that is generally used as a store of value, etc., etc. You already know. Okay, it's a medium of exchange. Then the Urjit Patel Committee recommendations, which are important. So what all recommendations are there with respect to the monetary policy, how you should be managing inflation, how you should be measuring it, the inflation target that has been set at 4% plus minus 2%. Then there should be formation of monetary policy committee, all these recommendations. Then that also some extra recommendations were there, that dependence on market stabilization scheme and cash management bills must be discontinued. As you know already, this recommendation was not implemented by the government. Yeah. Then all fixed income financial products should be treated on par with the bank deposits. This is already implemented. Then detachment of open market operations from the fiscal operations and instead linked solely to liquidity management. That is, OMO should not be used for managing yields on government securities. This is also not yet implemented. Two recommendations of Urjit Patel Committee have not yet been implemented. The rest of the recommendations have been already implemented. Just go through them, have a fair reading, because always a question can be asked in prelims on Urjit Patel Committee recommendations. Now, as far as the measures of money supply are concerned, some basic notes I have arranged for you. So up to 1967, there was just M, which is money with the public, and people's demand deposit. इसमें से the question also comes like this only, that what are the parts of like M0, M1, M2, M3, M4, that kind of questions have come. So up to 1977 they used the aggregate monetary resources, and from 1977 onwards the present system of M0, M1, M2, M3, M4 that is used. Okay. Now, whatever all is included in these M0, M1 and so on. So I have given you the description. You must commit this to your memory. This is very important for prelims. Okay. Questions have been asked, what is M3? What are the parts of M3 and so on. Now, there are two other kinds of questions that come on this M1, M2, M3, M4 indicators of money supply. So first is narrow and broad money. So both M1 and M2 are called narrow, M3 and M4 are called broad. Second is liquidity. Liquidity means the cash component. So that cash component is maximum or highest in M1 and it goes on reducing up till M4. Next, now there are some miscellaneous current updates on monetary system from the period February 2019 to August 2020. Okay. Now, ये जो सारी terms हैं, all these terms have been coming a lot in newspapers throughout this period, and they have not yet been asked in prelims in the last 2 years. So all these terminology I have gathered in one specific notes. You should be very careful. First is two types of legal tenders: limited legal tenders and unlimited legal tenders. So the limited legal tenders are regulated by the Coinage Act 2011. The coins of rupee 1 or above can be used for payment and settlement of up to rupees 1000. 50 paisa up to 20 coins can be used for settlement of payment up to rupees 10, and below 50 paisa coins have now been withdrawn for any kind of legal tenders. Okay. Then there are unlimited legal tenders. So every banknote is a legal tender in India. So 2 rupees se leke 2000 rupees tak. They can be used for settling any amount of debt in India. However, the Finance Act 2017 that brought a particular change. So the change is that cash transactions for less than rupees 2 lakh only can be there. Beyond that, if you want to use any kind of legal tender or anything, so you have to have check or any some types of digital or other mechanism in place. So for example, DD or NEFT or IMPS or something like that. Okay, fine. Now, why is this particular information important? So let's see. So there was a question in UPSC prelims 2018 where very simple thing was asked: which one of the following correctly describes the meaning of legal tender? Yeah, so just go through it. अब पीछे आपने अभी legal tender का definition पढ़ा. You just read the definition. Let's see. The money which is tendered in courts of law to defray a fee for legal cases. Nothing like that. The money which a creditor is under compulsion to accept in the settlement of his claims. Yes. The bank money in the form of checks, drafts, bills, no. The metallic money, no. So basically, B is the answer to this question. So in 2018, such a simple question came out of just the definition of legal tender. Now, because of the Finance Act and all this was again in news, it was coming regularly in news post demonetization. So that's why you must take cognizance of this particular fact. Next, bank money. So bank money related terminology which has been occurring in news for the last 1.5 year almost. So first is open or bearer check, where no crossing is done and anyone can in cash. Then IFSC code. What is this? So the full form is Indian Financial System Code. It's an 11 alphanumeric numbers to identify the bank branch, just like the PIN code identifies any area. So like ICICI 060 like this. Yeah. Then there is MICR code. So what is this? So this is magnetic ink character recognition. It's a 9-digit code written with iron oxide ink. Science and tech question also for automated clearance. Okay. So there is a MICR code on your various financial instruments like check and so on. So there it can be used. Now then NPCI CTS 2010. What is this? So this is a check truncation system. So scanned images of checks electronically are sent to the Droi bank for faster clearance without theft or tampering, and MICR readers are not required for this particular system. So this is there. Then demand draft. So it cannot be dishonored because the sender has to pay the amount beforehand to the bank before the bank issues a demand draft. आप पहले पैसे जमा कराते हो फिर उसके बाद डिमांड ड्राफ्ट आता है. Overdraft, ये क्या होता है? So when a person has insufficient bank balance, still he may withdraw money from his account as a loan. That is called overdraft. So for example, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, which just completed 6 years, it has 10,000 rupees as OD limit right now, okay, or overdraft limit. Now, again, another term that has been in news, core banking solutions. What is this core banking? So core banking refers to a centralized system established by a bank which allows its customers to conduct their business irrespective of the bank's branch. So this will not matter that where in which branch you have your account. You can just go to any branch of that particular bank and get your services there. So thus it removes the impediments of geo-specific transactions, and in fact CORE is an acronym for centralized online real-time exchange. So thus the bank's branches can access applications from centralized data centers. Okay, so for example Finacle and Bancius and eCubay. So these are all part and parcel of your core banking system. Remember the full form of core acronym as well for your prelims. The question on this is yet to be asked in prelims. Okay, but there was one particular question which came in 2016, which was very simple. So the 2016 question on core banking solution is, it is a networking of bank branches which enables the customers to operate the accounts regardless of where they open the account. So like we already know, it is an effort to increase RBI's control over commercial banks through computerization. Nothing like that. It is a detailed procedure by which a bank with huge non-performing asset is taken over by another bank. Nothing like that also. So answer for you is one only. A similar question can be coming in your 2020 exam also. They may be asking you the acronym of core. They may be asking you the example of core banking solutions. They may just give 1, 2, 3, Finacle, Bancius, eCubay. So what do they refer to in the Indian banking system? So it may be core banking solution. All right. Now, next, some money related current affair updates. So in India, we just launched visually handicapped friendly coins. So the government launched a series of VH friendly coins of rupee 1, 2, 5, 10 and 20, and National Institution of Design created them. They designed them, and the newly included coin is the rupee 20 coin. Just small facts, okay? Remember National Institution of Design and the visually handicapped coins. Okay. Next is Roshni app. इसका एक सिमिलर वर्जन अभी भी आया है मनी ऐप. Okay, now what is this? So Roshni is an artificial intelligence based Android application that helps determine the denomination of INR currency, that is rupee currency. So this currency recognition app especially is designed to assist visually impaired persons. There is a similar app called Money. We'll be looking at that also later in the identification of banknotes. So IIT Ropar developed this Roshni app, and there was another news, Budget 2020. So a museum on numismatics and trade will be set up in the historic old mint building in Kolkata. So just a tidbit kind of an information, but it can be used in your prelims. Then types of digital payment methods in India. They always remain in use and you must know basics about them. So like banking cards, USSD, Aadhaar enabled payment system, mobile wallets, banks, prepaid cards, point of sale machine, the one in which you swipe your credit card or debit card for your basic transactions or online payments. Okay. Then internet banking, mobile banking, you should know the basics about them. I have assembled all the basics related information with respect to these things. It's like what is Bharat Bill Payment System, what is National Automated Clearing House, then what is National Financial Switch, then Check Truncation System, UPI, UPI 2.0, Bheem, yeah, then Bharat QR, RuPay, AEPS, NETC. You should know the basics of these terminology. You must always go through even a Google search for these, just read what is the Wikipedia information on them also. Okay. Here I have assembled some information for you that can be useful for your prelims. So just go through that once, read it, it will be useful. Okay. Now, the current affair with respect to this is the new umbrella entity for retail payment system. Now, what is this? So, National Payment Corporation of India (NPCI) is right now the umbrella entity for retail payment systems. Umbrella entity means it is the single organizations which is regulating everything. So, it operates in card payments, that is RuPay, money transfer, that is IMPS, mobile payments like UPI and Bheem, and it also regulates the ATM networks. In 2015 they just asked who regulates the ATM networks in India. So it was NPCI, National Payment Corporation of India. Then the RBI in February 2020 proposed a draft framework for setting up a new umbrella entity focused on retail payment systems along the lines of NPCI. This new entities will be a company incorporated in India under the Companies Act 2013 with the minimum paid up capital of rupees 500 crore and no single promoter or group holding more than 40% investment in capital. A minimum net worth of rupees 300 crore must be maintained at all times. So instead of NPCI, a new body is to be formed. So that is called new umbrella entity. So for that, RBI has already proposed a framework in February 2020. Probably because of the COVID situation, this is a bit huddled up right now, but definitely over a period of time, this will come into picture, and you must know this much information at least, which is already in news for your prelims 2020. Okay, moving on. The proposed umbrella body will be set up, manage, and operate new payment systems. So anything new which is coming up, it will do it just like NPCI is, especially in the retail space, comprising but not limited to ATMs, white label POS, Aadhaar based payments, remittance services, and it will develop new payment methods, standards, and technologies, and also operate clearing state settlement systems. Okay, it will be responsible for monitoring retail payment systems. Note this point for your prelims. Okay. Now the monitoring is not going to be with NPCI, it is going to be with this new body. Okay. And related issues in the country and internationally also to avoid shocks, frauds, contagions that may adversely affect the system. So instead of NPCI, a new body is coming up and an international equation will also be there, which is not yet well developed in India. Okay. Now, next aspect, cryptocurrency. Now, it has been much in news. What is the situation with respect to cryptocurrency right now? Where does it stand? Okay, so it is a digital virtual currency created and stored using blockchain technology. What is this blockchain? So it is a secured, decentralized database that maintains a continuous growing list of records and transactions. Old entries cannot be deleted. New entries will be visible to all, hence the transparency, mainly used for running cryptocurrency networks. Now, in 2009, an anonymous user called Satoshi Nakamoto launched a cryptocurrency called Bitcoin. Now, this is where it started getting famous. In 2017-18, Dinesh Sharma Committee, remember this for prelims, okay? submitted its report to finance minister, and Subhash Chandra Garg committee also submitted another report to the finance minister, which both of these reports suggested that government should ban Bitcoin or any other kind of cryptocurrency in India. In 2018, finally, RBI directed all banks and any other kind of mobile wallet companies and so on to stop relations with any cryptocurrency company. So in India, there cannot be a cryptocurrency kind of a system which is at work. Okay. Now, Department of Economic Affairs has proposed a draft bill called Banning of Cryptocurrencies and Regulation of Official Digital Currency Bill 2019. It aims to ban use of all types of cryptocurrencies issued by private operators, and a non-bailable offense with jail up to 10 years is there. Okay, so we are not just banning it, we are also creating a jail term for it. So, however, if RBI launches a blockchain based digital currency, it will be permitted. So, that is also a part and parcel of this bill. Okay, so this much you should know in case of cryptocurrency for prelims 2020. Next, very important topic of monetary system, inflation. Always there is a question from this particular section. Now, we will be also covering the current updates from February 2019 to August 2020. What all are there in the inflation topic as well. Okay, let's go for it. So the basics with respect to inflation, you can use this as your index for recalling. So inflation is what? It is too much money chasing too few things. And in technical terms, it is when the growth rate of money supply in the economy is higher than the growth rate of the economy itself. Okay. So you already know this. Then the base effect, it is the impact of the prices of previous year on the prices this year. Then the types of inflation, creeping inflation, walking inflation, running inflation, hyperinflation. So creeping is like 1 to 3%. Okay. Walking is somewhere 3 to 9%. Then this comes in the range of 10 to 20%. And this comes in the range of somewhere near 20 to 100%. This is how you can remember them. Okay. So basically, on the basis of speed, how fast the prices are increasing. That is the concern area here. Okay. Then next, the types of inflation, demand pull, cost push kind of an inflation. So whenever there is a demand pull, which can be maybe due to, remember, national expenditure is equal to C plus G plus I plus X minus M. So the demand can be there because of the consumers. So maybe the population is increasing, maybe the consumer behavior is changing towards luxury. So that can lead to a demand push, demand pull. Then government expenditure as it is may be increasing, maybe the fiscal stimulus, maybe the government investments or public sector investments are higher. So that is there. Investments by private investor may be increasing. All these will be essentially creating certain kind of demand, and that will pull the inflation up. Remember this relationship, price is directly proportional to demand over supply. Okay, then again plus X. So exports create demand from the external economy side, from the export oriented side. So there also there can be a demand pull inflation. Okay, so then cost push inflation. So basically cost is what? It is the manufacturing cost plus taxes minus subsidy. So in case the manufacturing cost goes up, maybe the factors of production and so on, or if the taxes go up, the cost will go up. And in case the subsidies go down or they don't exist, again the cost will be affected. So this is the situation here. Within this cost push inflation, there is one particular another term, it's called imported inflation. In case the raw material of a particular good which we are creating, a finished good that we are creating in India, is imported. Now, the price of that imported raw material, if it increases, then the manufacturing cost will increase and the cost will increase. Such kind of an inflation which happens because of the increased price of raw material is called imported inflation. Okay, yet another terminology for you to remember for prelims. Now, moving on, wage price spiral or inflation spiral. What is this? So it is basically that wages pull the inflation up, because as the people will be earning more, the demand will increase, and if the demand increases, then price is directly proportional to demand over supply, prices will increase. Yeah, and then inflation will pull the wages up. Why? Remember that we have a pay commission that is established every 10 years. Why is it established? It is established because every 10 years the wages of employees would need to be increased. Okay, why it is so? Because the inflation has increased over a period of time. So wages pull the inflation up, inflation pushes the wages up. This common phenomena which is going on is called inflation spiral. Okay, I hope you already knew. So we have also explained it for those students for which this is a new concept. Now, three basic types or reasons or causes of inflation. So first is monetary. So you remember there is fiscal deficit. So fiscal deficit of government being high, the source of borrowing will decide whether it is inflationary or not. If the source of borrowing is banks or from within the economy, then it will not be inflationary. If it is from RBI, then it will be inflationary. This is also called monetization of deficit. Yeah, the term has been in news many a times in recent period as well. So you should remember it for your prelims, monetization of deficit. So whenever the government borrows directly from the RBI to meet the fiscal deficit requirements, it's called monetization of deficit, and this will add new money to the economy. The money supply will increase, and whenever the money supply increases, mudrasfiti, that is the another name for inflation, so inflation will also increase, right? Because based on money supply only this relationship works. The demand will increase and essentially the prices will increase, and that's how it works. Yeah. Second reason, monetary reason, is higher inflow of foreign currency. Higher inflow of foreign currency. So anytime foreign currency is entering Indian economy in the form of maybe FDI, maybe FII, maybe foreign aid, maybe remittances, maybe even external commercial borrowing. So this foreign currency essentially goes into extra money supply which is getting created for our economy, which was not a part and parcel of the earlier money supply of the economy, and that's why there can be inflation. Non-monetary reasons we just studied: demand pull and cost push, the ones that we studied just now. So they are the non-monetary reasons. Other reasons can be, for example, the disaster or a pandemic that is going right now, that can increase the inflation. Already the inflation right now is going somewhere near 6.9%, which is above the range. Okay. Then there can be cartelization, there can be other market-based malpractices, something like that. They can also cause inflation. Okay. Supply disruptions can cause inflation. Too much demand can cause inflation of luxury products or behavioral change in consumer preferences. So these can be the other reasons for inflation. Now, what is the effect of inflation? So effect of inflation has to be studied from two basic heads: production and distribution. So in terms of production, these are the things you must go through them, just study them. Yeah, you have already covered them in your basic studies, so I'll not be discussing them at length. Then effect on distribution, in terms of debtors and creditors. So during inflation, debtors are the gainers while creditors are the losers, because as the money supply is going to increase, the value of money is, the currency is going to decrease, and the creditors which will get that money back after a period of time, during that time, whenever there is high inflation, the money stands to lose value. So a money with lost value will be coming their way, while the debtors will be gainers, because in any case the interest rate that is being paid is being cancelled out by the inflation rate, because the money is losing value. They got the higher powered money, and later on they will be getting the money which has or they will be giving back the money which has lower purchasing power, so to speak. Okay. Then fixed income groups, essentially they are negatively affected by inflation, because people who are pensioners, salaried, they are to manage their expenses out of a set amount of money. So for them also there will be trouble. Then entrepreneurs, they can be positively affected. For them inflation is a boon. Remember law of supply. So supplier would like to supply more at higher prices. Yes. So for them it will be a boon, but for poor people, for fixed income people, for them it will be a problematic thing. Similarly for investors, so there also, if the fixed interest yielding bonds are there, So they will lose during the inflation because the interest that is going to come their way, they are like creditors when they get debentures or any kind of products. So they will lose money. In case it's a inflation indexed bond, so that is the rate of return or rate of interest is going to increase with the amount of inflation. So then they are safe in the capital market. Okay. Then inflation management. So monetary policy committee. So you remember Urjit Patel that recommended monetary policy committee. So prior to Urjit Patel also, there have been multiple recommendations for setting up of such committee. Now prior to MPC, there was something called technical advisory committee within RBI, which used to set the monetary policy. Okay. Now prior to Urjit Patel committee, there have been several committees like YV Reddy, Tarapur committee, Percy Mistry committee, Raghuram Rajan committee. These many committees have told or have suggested to form MPC before Urjit Patel committee. So remember this is very important for your prelims. Okay. Now, MPC is constituted by central government under the RBI Act 1934. So it is by central government, okay, not by RBI, and it is formed under the RBI Act to determine the policy interest rate required to achieve inflation target. Then it is a 6-membered committee. Already in 2015, they have twisted this particular information and asked, yeah. So 3 official members are of from the RBI, including the RBI governor, who also chairs MPC, and 3 external members nominated by Government of India will be there, who are experts in finance and monetary policy and such kind of things. Now, what is the composition and working? You already know. If you don't, just go through this. Then monetary policy. So there are 2 kinds of tools or measures within the monetary policy to regulate the flow of money. So whenever the quantity of flow of money is to be regulated, quantitative tools will be used. Whenever the qualitative aspect is to be regulated, the qualitative measures will be used. So you already have studied ratios, rates, OMO, LAF, MSF. The basic information regarding that I have given in this presentation. Download it, study it well, okay? Because on this basic information also, many a times a question might be coming in prelims. Now, as far as the monetary policy rates are concerned, right now the repo rate is going at 4%, but these are not to be crammed. Just read them once, have a basic idea, and move on. Okay, because every 2 months it changes, and your paper will be set 1 month prior to whenever it is being held. Yeah, and your result will take at least 45 days to come out. So within this period time limit, 2 months are over, and again MPC can be coming, and RBI can be giving an MPC which is not expected by UPSC. So it will never ask you what is the exact repo rate or what is the exact MSF rate or whatever. You must know, however, that reverse repo rate is less than repo rate. The MSF rate is more than the repo rate. So that kind of order you should know. Okay. So bank rate is equal to MSF is greater than the repo rate is greater than reverse repo rate. This order you should know for prelims. Okay. Then CRR and SLR, this keeps changing. Right now it is 13%, 3% CRR and 18% SLR. I hope you already know this, but from this particular tab, you should know just this much for your prelims. Okay. Now, the qualitative tools, just give them a reading. They are generally not asked in prelims, but just in case, give it a reading and go. Okay. Now, as far as the measurement of inflation is concerned, you know that it is from point to point and year on year basis. For example, if I want to know what is the inflation in August 2020, I will compare it with the consumer price index data from August 2019. Yeah. And because of that also, there is something called base effect. Yeah. In the measurement of inflation. So right now we are using CPI combined because of the Urjit Patel committee recommendations for measurement of inflation, and price index. You already know what is a price index. It's a normalized average of price relatives for a given class of goods and services in a given region during a given interval of time. So basically what they do is they go to the market, they go to the various goods and services outlets, the industries, and they get collect the price data. Remember the constant prices and current prices, all that things. Okay. Now this is about CPI. So various kinds of CPIs we have had in India. Some we are using, some we are not. Okay. about every CPI, you should know the base year. Whenever 2012 is written, it basically means 2011-12 in terms of financial year. Okay, so 2001 is written, it means 2001, like this. 1986-87, it is already clear. So you should know the base year of these indices. You should know who releases these indices. Right now, CPI is released by NSO. Remember, CSO and NSSO, they were merged, and now there is a single body called NSO. Okay, that is National Statistical Office within the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So that is giving the CPI rural, urban, and combined. CPI industrial workers is given by Labor Bureau, already asked in 2015 prelims. Okay, CPI agricultural labor, this is again given by Labor Bureau. CPI urban, so this is given by again the Labor Bureau. Okay, now next one. So what is the latest standard? What is happening? So just a quick review of all the information regarding CPI. Right now, a common base year is being used for all the major indices, that is 2011-12. Now, what are the components of CPI? So you should remember this for your prelims. Food and beverages, they have the highest. Then there is fuel and light, housing, clothing, pan, tobacco, intoxicants, and miscellaneous. Within miscellaneous, there are certain services also which are included. So CPI is an index which includes services, okay, but only few services are there. Now, here there are two things: core inflation and headline inflation. So headline inflation, it basically takes up the data of all these components, and core inflation will be all the data minus food and fuel variant. Okay, so if you take away that data, then the CPI that you're talking about is core, and the inflation idea it is giving you is core inflation. Fine. Generally, that is studied because we want to know something which is more stable in nature. Food and fuel prices are much more dynamic, they keep changing. In the economic survey 2017, they also talked about refined core, in which they also took away housing prices, because housing prices were also a lot of dynamic nature was there in that year, so they took that out. Okay, now next one. As of now, what all aspects are there with respect to your CPI? Just go through them once. Okay, so very important for you in your prelims examination. Then there are other indices: wholesale price index. Yeah, then there is the different components of WPI. You must have studied already. What are the various weightages of these components? The base year for this is 2011-12. Okay, and then there is index of industrial production. So here also a base year revision was done on the basis of recommendations by the Soumitra Chaudhary committee. Remember this, Soumitra Chaudhary committee. Forgive me if the spellings of Chaudhary are wrong. This committee was formed in 2017. So that committee revised this particular thing, and this is how it stands right now. Mining, manufacturing, and electricity. This is how it talks about. And within IIP, there is something called core IIP. The that you should also know what all different industries are there. And right now within core IIP, if you remember, the maximum weightage is assigned since 2017 to petroleum kind of products. Okay, before that it was electricity, but now it is petroleum products, refined petroleum products. Okay, so remember that. And the core IIP is right now around 40.32% of IIP. This kind of information about IIP is very important. It is asked time and again in newspapers. Then there is producer price index. So there was a working group headed by BN Goldar. Okay, and this working group has given certain recommendations about PPI. You should know what PPI is. You must have gone through it already. Now, about all these price indices, just know this: at the level of production, at the level of wholesale, then at the level of consumer. These are the three levels where prices are getting tracked essentially. Right now, for inflation tracking, we are using the consumer price indices. So at production level, we got PPI, at wholesale level, we got WPI, at consumer level, we got CPI. Okay. Now, one more thing which is being done is we are creating another index here that is called SPI, Services Price Index. You must have already gone through that. Otherwise, look for it, okay, online, and you must know this. Why? Because out of all these indices, this PPI, Producer Price Index, sorry, just like this, okay. Here there will be goods and services PPI will be there, and it will be separately made. This will be a dedicated services PPI. Both these are in the formation stage right now, okay. Prior to this, these two used to be there. WPI does not contain any kind of services, and this contains only some services. But Indian economy as it is service dominated. We have 55% services contributing to GDP. So you should know about services within the price indices that sorry, that makes sense, okay. Now RBI related current affairs, that is the next thing that we are going to deal with. So all the current affairs from February 2019 to August 2020 with respect to RBI we have to discuss. Very, very important. At any time the question can be asked. Last year also in prelims 2019 they asked about 3 questions on RBI related current affairs itself, okay. So let's look into that. So first is monetary policy transmission. What is this? So this has been coming in news. So there are reasons for monetary policy transmission. The problem transmission hai kya? What is this essentially? So RBI provides certain kinds of benefits to the banking system. Then these benefits should be given to the borrower also. Yeah. So this is the monetary policy transmission. Essentially, any kind of rates or ratio change which is happening here for the purpose of changing the money supply, that money supply variation should basically happen here. Only then the monetary policy has some utility. In case this transmission is not happening, then what is the purpose of having monetary policy? So there is an over dependence on banks because of which the monetary policy transmission gets restricted, and lack of bank funds due to double financial repression and priority sector lending. So that creates a trouble. So increasing non-performing assets, that also creates a trouble. Then suboptimal performance of MCLR system. You remember marginal cost of fund-based lending rate system. So this is already now done away with. RBI has come out with a solution for this. So in October 2019, RBI said that it is now mandatory for all the banks to link all new floating rate loans, that is personal, retail, or loans to MSME, to an external benchmark with effect from 1st October 2019. So banks have to choose one of the 4 external benchmarks, that is repo rate or 3-month treasury bill yield, 6-month treasury bill yield, or any other benchmark which is published by Financial Benchmarks India Private Limited. So this is a very important development which has happened for monetary policy transmission in the year 2019. Can be asked in prelims. Very, very important. Next one, current based terminology which has been there. So some of that terminology also I'm giving you because they may be asking these simple things in the paper. So interest rate spread, what is this? So spread basically refers to the difference in the borrowing rates and lending rates of financial institutions. In other words, it is the interest yield on earning assets such as loans minus the interest rate paid on borrowed funds. Just remember it for your prelims. Then another one is loan to value ratio. So what is this? So it is also called LTV ratio. So it is the proportion of property value that a lender can finance through a loan. For example, you pledged your property, then loan against property was generally 75%. Okay. So 75% of the value of that property could be given as loan to you. Now for calculating this LTV ratio, there is a formula, that is amount borrowed divided by value of property multiplied by 100. Recently, during this COVID-19 situation, to increase money supply, the monetary policy of RBI raised the LTV ratio on gold loans from 75% to 90%. So this is again a prelims based fact you must know. Then economic capital framework. This has been much debated and much in news last year. So let's see what is this. So the RBI transfers the surplus, that is the excess of income over expenditure, to the government in accordance with section 47, that is allocation of surplus profits of RBI Act 1934. So this is the rule, basic thing. Now earlier, RBI used to keep a major chunk of the surplus for its contingency and asset development. However, after the Maligram Committee report or recommendations in 2013, the transfer of surplus was increased. Last year, RBI formed a committee under the chairmanship of Bimal Jalan. Remember this Bimal Jalan committee, very important. Why was it established? You should know for prelims. That is to review the provisions under the economic capital framework. Now, what was, how does RBI accumulate these resources? Basically, what are the earning operations of RBI? Let's look into that first. So, management of the borrowings of Government of India, there RBI generates money. Regulation of banking and non-banking finance companies, management of currency and payment systems, foreign currency assets, holding of local rupee denominated government bonds or securities while lending to banks for a short term, that is repo and reverse repo operations, LAF, MSF, all these things. There also RBI earns money. Then it claims a management commission on handling the borrowings of state governments and central governments. All this essentially creates money, but the majority of money that is earned by RBI is from printing of currency notes. Okay, and the expenditure also is here only, and the second major expenditure is staff salary. Okay, now what are the recommendations by Bimal Jalan committee? So it said that a clear distinction between the two components of economic capital of RBI need to be made, that is realized equity and revaluation balances. What are they? So revaluation reserves comprise of periodic marked to market or unrealized notional gains or losses in value of foreign currencies, gold, foreign securities, rupee securities, and contingency one. Basically, all these things, their value can change with time. Any kind of foreign currency, etc., or any kind of security asset. So when their value changes, certain amount of revaluation reserve will be kept by RBI so that it does not get affected much by the change in value of these assets which RBI is holding. Okay. Second is realized equity. So which is a form of contingency fund for meeting all the risks and losses primarily built up from retained earnings. So it is also called as contingency risk buffer. The short form used is CBR. Now, what is the surplus distribution policy of RBI that has been finalized after the Bimal Jalan committee recommendations? So the Jalan committee has given a range of 5.5 to 6.5% for contingency risk buffer of RBI. So out of this range, previously it was around 7%. RBI has chosen a lower level, that is 5.5%, and because of that, there is an excess reserve which was created for the year 2019-20, yeah, of around 52,637 crore for the government, alongside the 1,20,000 crore some reserve which was already there. So around 1,76,000 crore was given to government in 2019-20 after the Bimal Jalan committee recommendations. Why the government went so fussy about all these things? Because the government was targeting a lower fiscal deficit, so essentially it can then create resources like this from other sources without having to borrow the money. So if it gets the RBI to transfer such kind of surplus, it is good for government. It has to borrow less money, okay, and it gets more money to spend. That is how kind of fiscal management which is going on. And for that fiscal management, all this drama was done with respect to Bimal Jalan committee and so on. Okay. Now, next current affair is RBI syncs financial year with fiscal year. Now, what is all this? So, on February 15, 2020, the board of RBI decided to sync the financial year of the bank with the fiscal year. The fiscal year beginning from April, 1st of April, and ends on 31st of March, while the financial year is between July, that is 1st of July, to 30th of June. Okay, so these are the two things. Then for some of you, this may be a new information as well. The Central Board of Directors of RBI at the 582nd meeting, don't remember the number here, just remember this fiscal year and financial year. Now they essentially recommended aligning this thing, and this would change the 8-decade-old practice of RBI. This again was a recommendation by Bimal Jalan committee so that the central bank will be able to provide estimate of surplus transfer better after the alignment. So if both are aligned with each other, what is going to be given to the government, that will be very clear. So for example, last time the surplus transfer was made somewhere in the August September period. So after this whole thing data was matched, yeah. But if they are aligned, then definitely in the beginning itself, the government will be getting these surplus transferred to them. Yeah. So that will be good for the government. It has to then borrow less, and the projections given in the budget will be then more credible, and a better picture for the upcoming year. What kind of receipts are available for the government that can be made by the government. So this will be the benefit of syncing the financial year and the fiscal year. All right. Next prelims 2020 add-on is the important monetary policy steps during the COVID-19 situation. So certain things have been done by RBI to create more liquidity for the government, to create lesser borrowing cost for the government, to create more liquidity for the banks. Yeah. So that there can be sufficient amount of cash supply available to the market for investment purposes, and the demand can then maybe pick up. So what is this all? So RBI asked the banks to avail cash reserve ratio exemption on incremental retail loans given to MSMEs, housing and auto sector between 31st January and 31st July 2020 for a period of 5 years. So this is a prelims fact that you must know. Then banks can deduct the equivalent amount of incremental credit disbursed by them as retail loans to these sectors over and above the outstanding level of credit to these segments as on 31st January 2020 from their net demand and time liabilities for the maintenance of CRR. You remember CRR? It is the amount of money that the bank has to keep with the RBI out of NDTL, and it's at 3%. On this, no interest is given by RBI even, and it is a kind of cost for the banks therefore. So essentially, the certain amount of relaxation has been given in terms of CRR, so the banks can lend more. Okay. Now also the leeway is given only for new loans, not the old loans, which will be given in this particular period, and loans before this are not eligible for this. Okay, so this was like a COVID-19 specific endeavor done by the RBI so that more liquidity can be given by the banks to the market. Then another thing which has been in news, that is RBI on March 27 introduced targeted long-term repo operations. So generally the repo operations are for a short-term period. This was a long-term repo operation which particularly came into news in this. So LTRO or long-term repo operation is a tool that lets banks to borrow from 1 to 3 years. So you should know the time period. Okay. So 1 to 3 year funds from the central bank at repo rate by providing government securities with similar or higher tenure as collateral. Then why it is called targeted? Because as in this case the central bank wants the banks to opting for funds under this options to be specifically invested in investment grade corporate debt. So basically whatever money they generate from this long term repo operations, the banks have to put this money in the corporate bond market. That is how this is targeted. Later there was another version called TLTRO 2.0. So in that they focused upon NBFCs and microfinance institutions. Yeah. So there the targeting was now done here. Okay. And the first target was the corporate bond market. This term LTRO or this tool was first introduced by the European Central Bank during the sovereign debt crisis in 2007-8. Remember the 2007-8 global financial crisis? Now that's when it was used. So at that time it was called long-term refinance operations. Okay. So we call it repo operations. The thing is just the same. Okay, next one. RBI unveils National Strategy for Financial Education 2025. Now, within this strategy, it has just come into news. You must know for prelims. So, the banks has come up, that is, the RBI has come up with 5 core action approach with this second national strategy. Prior to that, also there was one. Now, this is the second one. So, what is the 5 C's? You must know they are capacity, content, communication, community, and collaboration. Now here content refers to the curriculum in the schools, where the term capacity is used for developing capacity in the intermediaries involved in financial services like Bank Sati, banks itself, some kind of digital payment systems, self-help groups, etc. Then communication and community are used to create a community-led model for financial literacy using communication strategy. something which is done by self-help groups also. Then lastly, collaboration, that is another C, is used to enhance the partnership or collaboration amongst various stakeholders. The strategy also suggested adopting robust monitoring and framework to evaluate the progress made in terms of financial education. So this is one of the basic roles of RBI, financial education, and within that role, this is what is new, and you must remember this for your prelims. Very, very important. Next one, National Center for Financial Education. This is also a part and parcel of this policy itself. So the first NSFE was launched by National Center for Financial Education. This is now the second national strategy on financial education. Okay. Now it is a Section 8 non-profit company that is promoted by RBI, PFRDA, and IRDAI. Its key objective is to promote financial education across India for all sections of society as per the National Strategy for Financial Education and Financial Stability and Development Council. Remember FSDC? Yeah. Then its vision is a financially aware and empowered India. Remember the vision statement also. So this is very important for prelims. RBI related current affairs are always important for prelims. Do go through them, all of them. The presentation link, again I'm telling you, is available in the description of this video. So download it from there, study it. All these notes would suffice as a value addition for your prelims 2020. Nothing else you need to go through. I have covered all the necessary current affairs from all the sources, whether it is Hindu, whether it is Indian Express, Live Mint, PIB, even the online, kind of what you call magazines which are coming sometimes from Vision, sometimes from some other sources like PT365 and everything I have put into these lectures. Don't need to worry about anything. Just go through these lectures, listen to them carefully, keep the draft in hand, go through the draft, recall it time and again. Should be done for you. Okay. Next, RBI creates a payment infrastructure development fund of rupees 500 crore. First off, you should now remember these kind of figures which are coming, because in pre-NAN they can confuse you like by putting it 5,000 crore. So there you will be confused, because previously also they have been doing this with, for example, NIIF. We have studied a numerical MCQ with respect to this yesterday itself. Yeah, there they said that it is 4 lakh crore. Actually, it was 40,000 crore. So remember this figure always whenever a new infrastructure development fund or any kind of fund is created for that matter. Okay. So already the Apex Bank has made the initial contribution of rupees 250 crore for setting up of this fund, and the rest of the fund is going to come through the card issuing banks, because essentially this particular fund has been created to increase the point of sale infrastructure. Remember that swipe machines, yeah, and other digital payment infrastructure in the country. The funds are being allocated in line with the measures proposed in the vision document, that is on payment and settlement systems in India. So this particular vision document's name also you must remember. And what does it envision? It envisions that the point of sale transactions, which is around 44% of the total debit card transactions by 2021. This is the envision. Yeah. And the vision document estimated that by 2021 there will be around 5 million active point of sales. So more point of sale architecture is getting created through this particular fund. That is the purpose of it. Okay. Then International Financial Services Center Authority has been established by Government of India. So you know already there is a gift city, yeah, in Gujarat. So near Ahmedabad, that is an International Financial Services Center. Now this particular International Financial Services Center Authority has been established in Gandhinagar. That's again in Gujarat. Okay. And for this purpose, a notification has been issued under the IFSCA Act, that is International Financial Services Center Authority Act 2019. The authority will regulate financial markets in international financial services centers in India. So more will be opening. So there it will be doing it. The main functions of the authority you must know for prelims. So they are regulating the financial products such as contracts of insurance, deposit securities of financial institutions that have been approved by regulators. The regulators for all this will include RBI, SEBI, PFRDA, and IRDAI. So they are the regulators in our financial system essentially. Next one, what is the membership of this particular body? So the authority will have 9 members. There will be a chairperson, 2 members from Ministry of Finance, and 1 member each from RBI, SEBI, IRDA, and PFRDA. 2 members based on the recommendations of search committees. What is the functionality of this? So IFSC will provide fundraising services to corporates, individuals, and governments. Remember this, very important for prelims. They will also look into global tax management, wealth management, merger, risk management, operations, and so on. Yeah, because it's an international financial services center. Remember that. So then it will reduce the burden of other multiple regulators because all insurance, capital, and markets are currently being regulated by them. So that is where IFSCA will come into picture. Remember that for prelims, very important institution, new institution which has been formed. Okay. Then RBI announces special liquidity mutual fund worth rupees 50,000. So this is again a COVID-19 initiative where more liquidity is being provided by RBI. So you just need to remember special liquidity facility for mutual funds is to conduct repo operation for 90 days, and under this scheme the bank shall submit their bids on any day between Monday and Friday. Just some commit to memory kind of facts, tidbit facts that you should remember. Next one, the funds are to be used, where these funds will be used by banks exclusively to meet liquidity requirements, to extend loan products, to undertake purchases of investment grade corporate bonds. Remember the corporate bond market, same thing. A debenture in a long, what is a debenture? So that is basically the extra information that I have given. So it's a long term security that yields a fixed rate of interest secured against assets. Now, under the scheme, the liquidity support, even when exceeds 25% of total investments, is to be permitted to be included as held to maturity. Now, what is this? There's a new term for you, held to maturity. So, held to maturity are debt securities that are required to hold it till maturity. So, it is usually recorded as amortized cost in financial statement of a company. What is this amortized cost? We'll be looking at it in the next slide. Anyhow, so held to maturity is like something that you buy and then you keep it with yourself, and then you wait for a certain amount of time, and then after that time you will be able to get the financial benefit out of it. Okay, then the bank shall decide the repo or the lending rate of the mutual funds. However, the RBI is to hold the tenor of repo rates for a minimum of 3 months. Just tidbit kind of informations. These kind of rules and regulations, you have to cram sometimes, because if you go too much into the details of these things, they become difficult for you to understand and implement. Okay, then terminology update. So what is this amortized cost, depreciation, helicopter money? These kind of terminologies have been coming into use, so let's look into that. So amortized cost is that accumulated portion of reduced cost of a fixed asset that has been charged to expense through either depreciation or amortization. Depreciation is used to ratably reduce the cost of tangible fixed assets, while amortization is used to ratably reduce the fix of intangible fixed asset. Depreciation हम बोलते हैं ना कि consumption of fixed capital. So वो tangible assets के लिए है, for example a machinery or a hardware or something like this. Amortization is for intangible assets like financial products. Okay. Another term which has been coming in news is helicopter money. So this was the term framed by American economist Milton Friedman. So it is the monetary policy tool used for quantitative easing. Remember dear money policy, cheap money policy. So like the cheap money policy, and it aims to dump money into the struggling economy. So essentially very low interest rates like 0% or even negative interest rates can be given for dumping the money into the economy. Yeah, so RBI can offer that, and then people can use that money and create the demand. That is essentially like a last resort kind of a thing for boosting the economic growth if it has gone into slump. These are the kind of initiatives which are now required under COVID-19 situation. Then next current affair, RBI launches Abacus. So what is this? So Abacus, first let's see the acronym what it stands for. So it is Order Books, Inventories and Capacity Utilization Survey. Okay. Now on April 16, 2020, the RBI launched Abacus. So this is the 49th round of survey by the Apex Bank for the period of January to March. What does the survey do? So the survey provides an insight into the demand of Indian manufacturing sector. The survey is conducted quarterly, that is 4 times a year, and it has been conducted since 2008. So right now it was in news, that's why you should know about it. The survey covers around 2,500 companies in both public and private sector, and the survey also provides the ratio of total inventories to sale. So basically कितना सामान किसी के पास पड़ा है और कितना वो बेच रहा है. Also, the survey provides the ratio of raw materials to finished goods, and it helps to measure the economic activity in the economy. So that is the Abacus survey. You must know about it for your prelims. Very important. The question has not yet come on this survey. That's why we are expecting it. Okay. Then next, RBI approves mega consolidation plan for banks. So public sector banks have been amalgamated. Four large banks, 10 state public sector banks have been now amalgamated into four on from April 1, 2020, and the amalgamation was notified by the Government of India. So what all banks have been merged into what particular entity now? So Union Bank of India, OBC and Punjab National Bank. So they have created one single entity, that is Punjab National Bank. Then United Bank of India and OBC, sorry, this is a repetition. Okay. So just study one of it, that is enough. Forgive me for the typo error. Okay. Next, Allahabad Bank is to be amalgamated with Indian Bank, so the remaining entity will be Indian Bank. Then Andhra Bank and Corporation Bank will be amalgamated with Union Bank of India, so remaining entity is Union Bank of India. That's how it is there. Okay. So next one, the Section 7 of RBI Act basically empowers the Government of India to make rulings with respect to functioning of RBI in matters of public interest, and with this power the finance ministry has initiated the amalgamated plan. Okay, so there was another amalgamation which is not there, which is Syndicate Bank and Canara Bank. So Syndicate Bank has been merged into Canara Bank, so that is not there. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so right now there will be Punjab National Bank, Indian Bank, Union Bank of India and Canara Bank. The rest have been merged. Okay, so that is how 10 became 4. Fine. So there was this extra thing that came in and this got left out somehow because of the typo error. So please correct this in your presentation and make sure you do this change and remember it for your prelims also. Now, next one, RBI to release digital payment index by July 2020. So first off, you should remember who is releasing this digital payment index, because most of the time this is the question. Okay, the main aim of the creation of this index is to capture the extent of digitization of monetary payments in the country, and the classification will include rural, urban and semi-urban geographies. The index will help to study the impact of policy intervention by Government of India and what are the factors which are influencing the digital growth in India. Prelims may they can be asking a very direct questions. So 5 factors influence the digital growth or growth of digital economy of India, which are low data tariffs, rise in videos, widespread use of OTT, that is on the top or over the top platforms, and today India ranks the highest in video making platform. Okay, so all these things they influence the digital growth in India, media, digital payment systems, everything. Okay, next one, cabinet approves amendments to the bring cooperative banks under the RBI regulation. Prior to that they were under dual regulation, so the registrar of cooperative societies plus RBI, they used to be regulating the cooperative banks, and most of the responsibility fell on registrar of cooperative societies, but now they will be purely under RBI regulation. That is what has been done. Now section 35A of the Banking Regulation Act provides powers to RBI to give direction to banks. Okay, and it enables RBI with the power to take action in order to prevent a banking company from acting detrimental to the interest of the depositors. Under this power only it is regulating other banks, and it will be also regulating now the cooperative banks. So essentially why this has been done, because there was a crisis in Punjab and Maharashtra cooperative bank, there was a fraud. So because of that fraud this was a trouble. What was this crisis? So in September 2019, because of the fraud, there was a problem with respect to the assets which were available for the bank for giving to the depositors. So there were restriction placed for bad loans in the bank account to 3.76% of its advances, and also the profit of the bank had been decreasing. It was 100 crore in 2018. decreased to 99 crores in 2019. So therefore, the RBI took precautionary measures to prevent the bank run or any kind of crisis in Punjab and Maharashtra Cooperative Bank. Okay. Then next, RBI launches money application for Visually Challenge. So previously, you know about Roshni app. We talked about in today's lecture that was developed by IIT Ropar. This one has been launched on January 1, 2020. It's an RBI app, okay, where money stands for Mobile Aided Note Identifier. Same thing. Here also, the application helps in identification of currency notes for the visually disabled or visually challenged. So that is the job of this. So the government has launched the Mahatma Gandhi series of notes, 2 rupees se leke 2000 rupees tak. So this series was introduced in 1996. So little bit about currency notes you should know. At the back of 2000 note, at the back of your 500 currency note, what kind of images or pictures are described, you should know about them as a general awareness thing. Okay, that's not even economy, but you should know. Next important current affair is RBI Operation Twist. Now, what is this Operation Twist? First, you should understand this. The purpose is to reduce the borrowing cost of the government in this whole thing. Okay, that should come down. Now, you know, RBI is doing open market operations. So within open market operations, this Operation Twist was done. You see, on the long term bonds or securities given by the government, the interest rate is higher. Okay, and on the short term securities issued by the government or the bonds issued by the government, the interest rate will be low. So essentially, what the RBI has done, it has bought back long term securities and equal amount of short term securities have been sold back into the market. So essentially, the borrowing cost or the interest burden on the government will reduce. That is Operation Twist. Okay, and this is used by central banks to basically lower the interest rate for the government. And USA implemented Operation Twist twice in 1961 and 2011. A legal framework for issuance of the government securities was provided by the Public Debt Act in 1944, and this act was replaced by Government Securities Act 2006, which presently oversees the government securities and defines the purpose of securities, which is predominantly raising loans for the government. Remember this for your prelims. It's a value addition. And what is Operation Twist? Okay, what is the purpose of Operation Twist? You should know it for prelims. Very, very important. Then next one, RBI unveils guidelines for small finance banks. So new guidelines have been issued for this. So what are these new guidelines? Let's go directly into it. So licensing window will be open on tap. That is basically throughout the year, the licenses can be given to small finance banks, and the RBI has issued license to 10 small finance banks. Then you should remember that the minimum paid up voting equity capital or net worth requirement shall be rupees 200 crore. So if you want to open a small finance bank, at least this much capital you should have. Then for primary urban cooperative banks aspiring to voluntarily transit into small finance banks, initial requirement of net worth shall be rupees 100 crore. So a bit less is there. That will have to be increased to rupees 200 crore within 5 years from the date of commencement of business. So this is another one you should remember. Then small finance banks will have general permission to open banking outlets from the date of commencement of operations, and small finance banks will be given scheduled bank status immediately upon commencement of operations. Payment banks like Paytm, India Post, Fino can apply for conversion into small finance bank after 5 years of operations if they are otherwise eligible as per the guidelines. So these are the new things which have come for small finance bank. This is a very important topic for prelims. Many a time the question is asked about small finance banks. Okay, so this is a new information, must know for it. Even in priority sector lending, you should study about small finance banks. There, the target for them is 75% priority sector lending. In general, the target is 40% of A and BC. For them, this is the target. Okay, so you should know. Okay, next is and definitely we'll be covering all this in the tomorrow's lecture, that is on financial system. When we study the banking sector, in that we'll be covering the small finance bank and everything related to that. Okay, now next one, RBI enhances the scope of special non-resident rupee accounts. So what are they? You should know the accounts. Okay, so this SNRR accounts, first off you should know the full form, special non-resident rupee accounts. They allow a person residing outside India to open accounts in India. This can be for a purpose of external commercial borrowing, trade credit, or trade invoicing in domestic currency. The step is taken to popularize the cross-border transactions in Indian rupee. Rather than using dollar, they can use this. Now, the step is taken with a view to promote usage of INR products. The Apex Bank, that is RBI, in consultation with Government of India, has been decided to expand the scope of SNR, and any person who is resident outside India having a business interest in India can open a non-interest bearing SNR account. Basically, इस पे interest rate नहीं मिलेगा with a bank for a bona fide transaction in INR. Bona fide means legal transaction, valid transaction. In addition to this, RBI, in consultation with government, has decided to rationalize certain other provision with SNR accounts, such as removing restriction on the tenure of SNR account, which is currently 7 years, and for the purpose given above. So basically, it can be going on forever. That kind of thing they are trying to do. Essentially, this is to promote more Indian rupee based transactions so that the pressure on foreign exchange reserves can be reduced and RBI does not have to deal much into that. And within INR only, the people who are residing outside India, they can do their transaction in Indian rupee itself. Okay. Next one, RBI Consumer Confidence Survey 2019. First off, again remember who gives this particular survey. Okay, and according to this, the consumer confidence has dipped to a 6-year low. Pandemic was there, and prior to pandemic, already economic growth was low. So that's how it is. Now the RBI says that this is mainly due to decline in employment, income, and discretionary spending. So the reasons also you should know for prelims. Okay. Next, RBI has launched a complaint management system. So what is this? So it is a software application launched by RBI for lodging complaints against any regulated entity with public interface such as commercial banks, urban cooperative banks, NBFCs, etc. So objective is to obviously redress the grievances of people who are dealing with this and improve the customer experience. Why there is a need for this? For maintaining trust in the financial system. Remember, the word bank essentially means a dependable containment. Okay, so unless and until there is trust, there cannot be banking. Okay, so that's why this particular complaint management system is there. It's time bound complaint management which is done under this, and it is definitely going to smoothen out the process. Okay. Next one, RBI constitutes a high level committee to review ATM charges. So just remember the name of the person, VG Kannan. So he was rather the chairman for this particular committee. And who is this VG Kannan? He was the chief executive of India Bank Association, who reviewed the entire gamut of ATM charges and fees. Regarding ATMs, you should also go online and check what are this white label ATMs, what are brown label ATMs, and so and so. There are different kind of label based ATMs. Just search for that white label, brown label, pink label, kind of ATMs, and you should know about the information. Okay. So then next one, another name of committee you should remember is Harshvardhan Committee on Housing Finance Securitization Market Development. Just remember the name. That is the only thing important for prelims. Extra information is it is to review the existing state of mortgage backed securitization in India. That is basically the property papers which you pledge for the loan account. Okay, that is the mortgage backed securitization in India, and also suggest measures to deepen housing finance securitization. So when you basically take a home loan, you mortgage your home with the bank essentially. Okay, the papers of the home will be there with the bank. So that is what the thing is here. And it is to assess the role of various counterparties in the securitization process, which include services, rating agencies, trustees, and so on. So to assess the risk in home loans in a better way. Now within this, the term securitization has come into picture. So what is securitization? So you should know that any bank and lender have receivables from various kind of loans which it has given, and securitization converts these into debt instruments. So they know that certain amount of money is coming their way. Based on that accrual that is coming their way, they can be creating a debt instrument. Okay, and then they can sell this debt instrument in the market, that is the money market or capital market, as per the nature of the debt instrument created. and they can get liquidity, and essentially this is in lieu of the already coming liquidity from the market. So that is the process which I have explained here also. Okay, and all the PTCs in the market, so that is the pass through certificates, that is a special purpose vehicle which is set up to pool these assets and issue debt instruments. So these debt instruments are called pass through certificates. So all these PTCs in the market are rated by agencies. So like CRISIL and ICRA, they will be rating them. They will be providing credit rating, which tells the investor the quality of underlying securities. That is the quality of accruals or the base on which they are created. So essentially, what is the thing? There are certain amount of assets with the bank. From these assets, the bank is expecting money to come in future. Based on this expectation, it creates a debt instrument which is called PTC or pass-through certificate. This pass-through certificate can be then floated in the capital market where the investor can invest in this pass-through certificate. What happens now is that the bank will get the money as an investment, and this particular investor will get certain amount of interest rate. They already know this particular money is coming with certain amount of interest rate earning. Out of that, they give a little bit interest here, and they are able to get the liquidity back, and based on that liquidity they can go and do further lending. So this is how a kind of money multiplier is done by the banks also. Okay, then next is Nilekani report on digital payment. So that has been submitted to RBI. So within this report, lot of things were given with respect to increasing or promoting the digital payment in India. So Nandan Nilekani is the person who established the Aadhaar architecture in India. So it undertook a cross-country analysis, and essentially it has provided for a payment and settlement system of India Vision 2019 to 2021. So which has recently been released by RBI also, and it seeks to ensure a secure, safe, quick, affordable, convenient e-payment system with the aim of making India a cash light society, not cash less society. Okay, fine. Then another current affair from RBI. So it has set limits for the ways and means advances system. This is for the previous year. Remember, we are covering from February 2019 onwards. Okay. So now, what is this WMS system? It is there in place since 1997 to meet the temporary mismatch in the receipts and payments of the government. Remember, the government gives you a budget in which it is giving receipts and expenditure. Sometimes the receipts take time to come, but the expenditure has to be done. So for that, a kind of credit card is given through ways and means advances system for the government. Now, whatever utility of money has been done out of this WMA, it has to be given back in 90 days. Like your credit card bill cycle is around 45 days. Here it is 90 days. Okay. It's like a credit card which is given by RBI to the government. Okay. Now the interest rate of WMA is currently charged at repo rate, and the limits of WMA are decided by RBI in consultation with Government of India. Okay. So further, RBI provides an overdraft facility when WMA limit is breached. So that overdraft is not allowed beyond 10 consecutive working days for central government and 14 days for state governments. You already know this. You have studied WMA system from me earlier, those who have studied economy from me. Then WMS scheme for state governments, like I told you, it's already there. So for 14-day overdraft facility is also available. And the special WMA is provided against collaterals of the government securities held by state governments. Remember, treasury bills can only be given by central government. These will be held by state government. They will invest in this. And based on these treasury bills, which the state governments are holding, they will be getting the WMA facility. And they will be getting the special WMA limit. Okay. Now, the state governments are provided with a normal WMA, which is based on a 3-year average of actual revenue and capital expenditure of the states. Remember these basic facts for prelims, they are very important. They have been in news, they have not been asked in prelims for a very long period of time. That's why very, very important for your prelims paper. Okay. Next up, RBI is for setting up a regulatory sandbox. What is this regulatory sandbox? So, regulatory sandbox allows for experimenting uh, of fintech companies, financial technology companies. So with the lesser amount or contained amount of people. Okay, so like any kind of new financial application, a Paytm kind of thing is coming up, so they can test that application with a limited amount of people. So Here, a lower cost and in less time, they will be enabling the fintech companies to conduct live or virtual testing of the new products and services that they are going to launch. That is the regulatory sandbox. Okay. Then, FinTech Conclave 2019. So, Niti Aayog organized a day-long FinTech Conclave in 2019 at New Delhi. Now, the objective of the conclave was to shape India's continued ascendancy in FinTech, that is financial technology, and build up the narrative for future strategy and policy efforts and deliberate the steps for comprehensive financial inclusion. Essentially, financial technologies are built for financial inclusion. Now, this conclave looked into various dimensions of future of fintech, which are digital onboarding of customers and merchants for financial inclusion, building financial products for Bharat, so that means rural India, emerging areas of fintech, fast tracking investment in fintech industry, and financial inclusion of MSMEs. So, what are the focus points of this fintech conclave? So, that you must know for your prelims. Add on information. Next one, RBI eases guidelines for white label ATMs. Now, what are white label ATMs? First, you should know that. Okay, so basic information is given. You can go through that. Now, what are these new guidelines? So, white label ATM operators are now allowed to buy wholesale cash above a threshold of 1 lakh pieces and in multiples thereof of any denomination directly from RBI and currency notes against full payment. They are also allowed to source cash from any scheduled bank, including cooperative banks and regional rural banks, because ATMs basically need cash. On that basis only they'll be working. Okay. Other guidelines are very generalistic in nature. Just go through them, read them once. That's all. That's what should do for you. Now, let's now look into what are the questions that have been asked from this particular chapter of monetary system over the last years. So I am there with you live in the premiere of this lecture, and I would want to see how many of you can do these questions right. So you can type in your answers within the chat. Okay. So what all are the components of broad money? So all these three are the components. So the answer is D. Very factual kind of question. We have already discussed M0, M1, M2, M3, M4. That's where the question comes from. Then, which one of the following statement is appropriate description of deflation? So you see there are three things. One is inflation, that is rising prices. One is disinflation. I hope you remember this. So that is decreased rate of inflation. Then there is deflation, which means negative inflation. So now what matches here? So it is a sudden fall in the value of currency against other currencies. That is exchange rate, unrelated. It is a persistent recession in both real and financial sectors. No. It is a persistent fall in general prices or price levels of goods and services. And it is the fall in rate of inflation over a period of time. So this is deflation and this is disinflation. Okay. So very tricky question by UPSC. Answer to this question is C. Next one. When the RBI announces an increase in CRR, what does it mean? So the commercial banks will have less money to lend. Obviously, this is the answer. No need to go any further. Then, next one. The repo rate is the rate at which other banks borrow from RBI. All right, perfectly fine. Basically, commercial banks borrow from RBI. Yeah. A value of 1 in Gini coefficient in a country implies that there is perfect equal income for everyone in the population. No. Gini coefficient of 0, that represents perfect equality. 1 represents perfect inequality. We'll be studying that in poverty and unemployment chapters. So they have combined the knowledge from two chapters to create one question. Answer to this question therefore is 1. Basically definition of repo rate is asked. Now, the National Housing Bank was set up as a wholly owned subsidiary of which of the following? RBI is the answer. This is again from banking system, but anyhow, RBI, in case you are studying on a regular basis, many a time a current affair kind of thing is happening in NHB. Now, next one. With reference to India, consider the following statements. The WPI in India is available on a monthly basis only. Yes, that is correct. In 2010, it was not correct. At that time, it was monthly and weekly. So therefore, whenever this term comes only, you should be very, very careful. Okay. Then As compared to CPI for industrial workers, WPI gives less weightage to food articles. Yes, that is also correct. So both 1 and 2 are correct statements here. Then, a rapid increase in rate of inflation sometimes attributed to base effect. What is base effect? So we studied, so it is the impact of price levels of previous years on the calculation of inflation rate. See, most of the questions from the monetary system, they have come rather till 2018-19 from the static portion. Now, in the 2018-19 paper, lot of current affair bias was there, which we are again expecting in 2020. That's why I have covered so many current affairs related to RBI and monetary system this time. Yeah. Then, India has experienced persistent and high food inflation in recent past. Which of the following are the reasons for the same? First one, gradual switchover of cultivation from of commercial crops, and the area under cultivation of food grain has steadily decreased. Again, steadily is the watchword in the last 5 years for about 30%. Nothing like that has happened. The commercial crops, if that much switchover is done, it will be very good for farmers' income, but that is not a case. Our farmers are trapped in rice wheat cycle. So they have combined the concept of inflation with the topic from agriculture. That's how the question was set. Second statement, as a consequence of increasing incomes, the consumption pattern of people have undergone significant change. Definitely, because of that, inflation is increasing. Third, the food supply chain has structural constraints. Yes, that is also there. So 2 and 3 are the answers to this question. So they are combined information from agriculture chapter and monetary system chapter to create one question. Agriculture related topic we will be definitely studying in agriculture. For now, it's simple. You should be able to understand it. Then next one, an increase in bank rate generally indicates which of the following. So bank rate means that the cost of borrowing for the banks will increase. So what is happening? Market rate of interest is likely to fall. Central bank is no longer making loans to the commercial banks. Central bank is following a easy money policy. Central bank is following a tight money policy. D is the answer. Tight money policy basically means bank rate, repo rate, they will be high. Yeah. So at a higher rate, it will be following. So tight money policy or dear money policy is there. Remember the monetary policy stands. So you should know this for your prelims. Then inflation benefits the debtors. So those who have borrowed, essentially they are debtors. So they are definitely benefited. Inflation benefits bondholders. No, bondholders are like creditors. So creditors are not benefited. They are rather negatively affected. So one only is the answer. Then demand deposit with the bank, time deposit with the bank, saving deposit, currency, the correct sequence in decreasing order of liquidity. So currency has the highest liquidity. So we are reduced to options 4 here in B and D. Then next one, demand deposits have the what do you say, a lot of liquidity, but time deposits, they will have lesser amount of liquidity because that money will be available only after a little time. So if you just know the extremes 4 and 2, you come out to the option D, and that is your answer for this question. Next, in context of Indian economy, open market operation refers to what? So it is the purchase and sale of government securities by RBI. Simple definition based laddu question, that's what we call them. Okay. Next, economic growth is usually coupled with inflation. Remember, little bit of inflation is good for the economy. That's why we have the rate 4% plus minus 2%. So that is good. You know the effect of inflation on production and distribution. From there, this particular question comes. Next, the lowering of bank rate by RBI will lead to what? So if the bank rate is lowered, there will be more liquidity in the market. Yes. Less liquidity, no. No change in liquidity, no. Mobilization of more deposit, no. So this is the answer. As it is, bank rate, whenever it is lowered, the transmission of monetary policy can be then better. So from RBI to banks, the money will be made available at a lesser rate of interest, and then the banks to borrowers or the liquidity towards the economy can then be increasing. Then, which of the following measures would result in an increase in money supply in the economy? Let's look into that. Purchase of government securities. So basically एक certificate वापस ले लेंगे, cash दे देंगे, इससे money supply बढ़ेगा. Deposit of currency in commercial banks by the public. So this will reduce money supply. So this is wrong. Borrowing by the government from central bank. Definitely the government is going to monetize the deficit for spending purposes, so it will increase money supply. Sale of government securities to public by central bank. This again is going to decrease money supply. So answer for us is 1 and 3. Next one. A rise in general level of prices may be caused by which of the following? An increase in money supply, definitely, yes. We know from the monetary reasons of inflation. A decrease in aggregate level of output, yes. Remember, just simple this one, price is directly proportional to demand over supply. So decrease in aggregate level of output means supply will reduce. This will definitely increase the prices. An increase in effective demand. So if this goes up, again the prices will go up. So all these three are correct. So a general level of prices may be increased by all these three. Okay. Next, which one of the following is likely to be most inflationary in its effect? Repayment of public debt, borrowing from the public to finance budget deficit, borrowing from the banks to finance budget deficit, creating a new money to finance budget deficit. This was a very dicey kind of a question, and multiple people had multiple opinions on it. But you see, out of all this, budget deficit is generally what? 3 to 4% of GDP. But public debt, if you talk about it, is around 60% of GDP in general times, as per the FRBM also. So if all this is paid back, definitely a lot of money will go into the system. Yes. So, and most of the time, this particular money was taken from the system already. If same amount of money gets taken from the system and put back into the system, even if this amount is too high, 60% of GDP, it is not going to create much dent in terms of inflationary thing, because the money supply won't change. The amount of fresh money added to the economy won't change. Yes. So this is outrightly ruled out. Then borrowing from the public to finance the debt. Again, you are getting from the economy and you're giving back to the economy. The money supply does not change. Borrowing from the banks to finance budget deficit. Again, same thing is happening. Creating new money to finance budget deficit. So herein, RBI is providing new money supply, and an add-on money supply is now getting to the economy. So higher money supply will happen, and higher money supply would mean more inflation. So therefore, perfect answer to this question is D. Okay. Fine. Next one. Supply of money remaining same. When there is an increase in demand of money, there will be. So market में पैसा उतना ही हो पर उसकी demand ज़्यादा हो. So what will happen? The rate of interest will increase. So you will get the money on higher interest rate. Very simple. So therefore the answer is B. Next one. In context of Indian economy, which of the following are the purposes of statutory reserve requirements? So what is this? So to enable central bank to control the amount of advances made by banks. So basically SLR, CRR, these are the statutory reserve requirements. So इनका क्या purpose है? So ये ठीक है बिल्कुल. अगर ये ज़्यादा होंगे तो कम लोन दिया जा सकता है. Then to make the people's deposits with the bank safe and liquid. Yes. So these reserve requirements make the people's deposits safe and liquid. To prevent commercial banks from making excessive profits. You know, why should the RBI prevent commercial banks from making any kind of profits, or excessive or in excessive kind of profits? Such kind of thing is not related here. So it is a wrong statement. To force the banks to have extra vault cash, this is again wrong. So here the answer therefore becomes D, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, with reference to Indian economy, consider the following: bank rate, OMO, public debt, public revenue. Which of them are a part of monetary policy? So essentially, bank rate and OMO, they are a part of your monetary policy. So therefore answer is 1 and 2 only. Next, with reference to with RBI, whenever it is reducing SLR, what is happening? So quickly, so scheduled commercial banks may cut their lending rate. This is the answer to this. Very simple. Then with reference to inflation, which of the following statement is correct? So controlling inflation is the responsibility of government of India only. No, it is not like that. Then RBI has no role in controlling inflation. Definitely it has. Decreased money circulation helps in controlling inflation. Yes, that's the answer. Then which of the following is correct with respect to MPC? So it decides RBI's benchmark interest rate. Yes, it's a 12-member body. No, it is 6-membered. It functions under the chairmanship of RBI governor, not Union Finance Minister. So answer is A, one only. Then, which of the following statement correctly describes the meaning of legal tender money? So B is the answer. Then, if commodity money is provided free to the public, then what is this? The opportunity cost is transferred from the consumer of the product to the government. This has been a long lecture, isn't it? Okay, so this covers everything for you in monetary system. You already know that only economy and polity sections will be available through YouTube free of cost. Rest of the sections of this particular prelims booster course will be available to those students who are a part of my personal online mentoring program. These are the features of it. If you want to be a part and parcel, this is how you can contact me. Only 30 students are to be enrolled. Seats are filling up fast. If you want to be a part, give me a call or send me an email and we will talk about it. Thank you so much. All the best for your prelims 2020. This is me, Abhishek Sharma, signing off.